Hey everyone, welcome to the A to Z of Sex with me, Dr. Lori Beth Bisbey. I'm a psychologist and accredited advanced gender, sex, and relationship diversity therapist, author, speaker, and the resident specialist therapist for Open House, the Great Sex Experiment on Channel 4 in season 2 at the present time. We are working our way through the erotic alphabet, one letter at a time. And today the letter is M, and M is for mystery vibe and also for medical.
Hi.
Hi. So joining me on the show is Dr. Soum Rakshit, and he is the co-founder and CEO of Mystery Vibe. He did his PhD in biomedical engineering and created a startup in eye recognition, which was acquired by a US defense company. He then spent 7 years in management consulting on large technology projects. And in 2014, Soum started Mystery Vibe to bring defense electronics and medical expertise together and create devices that solve big topics in sexual health in an accessible way. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So I remember when the original Mystery Vibe came out. And at the time, what was most interesting was that it was flexible.
Yeah.
Which was not something that was seen before. I mean, it was also very good quality. I should say that, you know, the texture was really nice. And was a step above some other things. But what was most special about it was the flexibility. But we've moved on from there. So you have the first.
No, it's still the same.
It's still the same.
It's better, but the fundamentals are exactly the same with every product. What I mean by that is all of our 6 products, which we currently have, are flexible, malleable, stretchable, and that is the key to our product design. And that's where we spend all our time researching, customizing motor design, customizing material science, customizing, making it really, really robust, really strong, so it doesn't break, you know, no matter how many times you bend or stretch them, but also very easy for users to use. So fundamentally, that is the core of our product design. And I would always say the 2 applications, no matter, you know, which way you look at it. One is the health side, because the reason for creating them to be malleable was to reach and deliver vibration at precise points. So that was the reason behind it. But, you know, once, let's say pain is a very big issue in sexual health, pelvic pain, vulvar pain, pain after menopause or during menopause, you know, various. So let's say, yes, it's designed by doctors to address a lot of medical things, but it's equally very valuable from a pleasure perspective. So once you overcome pain, or if you don't have any, that's great. Is how do you use it to enhance pleasure, to have orgasms which you may not have access to otherwise, to improve your pleasure which you already have. So we always think of it as 2 things. Even though a lot of the work we do in the lab is medical and with doctors.
But so I want to talk about that, both parts of that, because when I first discovered Mystery Vibe, and I guess I was an early adopter, actually I think you guys discovered me. Can't remember how, but that's fine. And so I wasn't looking at the medical side of it per se at that point. That was
no, and we couldn't
and you didn't, because you didn't make any claims at that point.
Exactly.
No.
So
but I wasn't
in 2019.
I wasn't even thinking of that. But also from a personal perspective, I was premenopausal. I wasn't perimenopausal. So I was still within the realms where in my journey, I wasn't thinking about pain. Now, I know that a lot of women have pain younger, but in my journey, I wasn't thinking about pain. But what I was impressed by, so I was looking at the pleasure side, and one of the impressive things about having a flexible vibrator is if your physical proportions aren't the ideal female physical proportions. And so one of the problems that female-bodied folk have with typical sex toys is that there's like, I don't know why they measure this, but there's optimum distances. And so if you don't have a flexible toy and your clitoris is in one place, if you're larger and, you know, getting to arm length is going to be a problem, getting to your clitoris, or if you're looking at your clitoris in one place and your G spot in another, and the toy doesn't have optimum flexibility, then you don't get the sensations that the toy is meant to give. So it's frustrating if you're not falling into average proportions. And so when I remember first time I tried out Mystery Vibe, what was great was I could get it to go exactly where I wanted it to go.
Yep. That's exactly that's it.
Yeah.
It's
and
how do you get to reach the point that you want to reach to?
Absolutely. And that was a new experience for me. With any toy that was meant to be able to be used, you could use both internally and externally to actually get it to go where I wanted it, and it would stay in the position that you asked it to be in, which was another thing, right? You know, because there, and so I think of this as the first properly bendy toy, and there have been bendy toys since, and I've tried them. I mean, I often get asked to try things, and I'm happy to do so. And a couple of the ones that I hoped I would enjoy, I had the same problem, which was they were only just so bendy. So the configuration never worked. And Mystery Vibe has stayed super, super flexible also, so that no matter what your gender, you can find something to do with it, which is, I think, also really valuable. But what fascinated me with the new iteration is that you now have FDA approval as the medical device. Well, now I'm postmenopausal, and I know something about the kinds of pain that people experience with penetrative sex that we don't talk about a lot. We talk about vaginal dryness. We talk about kind of non-specific vulval pain, and the solution usually is lubricants and sometimes sometimes topical, well, not topical, focused estrogen, which does seem to help. But I had never seen anything said about the possibility that vibration could actually help with pain upon penetration.
Yeah. So and this is where a lot of our work is. So like I was saying, when we first started, we obviously couldn't, even though the goal was to make it effective in a medical setting, we couldn't talk about that till we had FDA, till we had clinical papers, till we had evidence. So in the early years, we only asked people, you know, try it, enjoy it, tell us feedback, and that's it. So we got our FDA in 2019, and then we started our clinical trials in 2020. It's kind of when COVID started. And then we had our first of now 3 journal published papers in the Journal of Sexual Medicine early last year, and we have 7 more studies currently running. So one of them, which is the genitopelvic pain and penetration disorder, which is GPPPD, we had 5x improvement in 12 weeks using Crescendo 3 times a week, and that was significant because it's the difference between living with pain and living without pain. So and that's the kind of study we like to do more and more of.
So let me ask a couple questions about this study, right? What's amazing to me about that is that there really has been no advice for women who experience pain upon penetration, and there's not a lot of energy or effort spent on that because it's only with penetration. That means that it only affects penetrative sex, and nobody focuses on that for women. They focus on that for men. So I suppose some of the reason people are focusing is because men are complaining that they can't, right? Not because women are complaining. That traditionally the focus is never on that. So it's like, well, you can have pleasure other ways. So this is a big deal. If using this vibrator 3 times a week actually improves that symptom, and you're able to have less pain on penetration or no pain on penetration, that's a big deal. So how large was this study?
The study was 30 patients, and then now there is another study running which is 300 patients.
Yep.
Then we're doing a study with NHS, which is a more multi-site randomized clinical trial, which has been running for 3.5 years. It's a much longer process to do multi-site randomized.
Yes.
And then wider is more feedback. So we have 100,000 users who used our products, and it's that feedback which is even more important than the study. The study is obviously important from a evidence, formal evidence perspective, but really, we will never be able to do a study with 100,000 people because it's just too expensive. So getting that out there in the hands of people and getting feedback was the key to improving. Like Crescendo 2 is so much better in every way.
Yeah.
Crescendo 1. And the other thing is the fundamentals are really simple. So all vibration does is it improves blood flow, and that's it. It is not anything complicated. So if you apply vibration to your back, like a Theragun, it improves with back pain, right? So it's not doing anything different in the genitals. If you apply vibration to your pelvic floor where you have pain, it helps with alleviating that pain because it gets lots of blood flowing, oxygenated blood going to that area and enriching that area and making it addressing the issues there. So same with vulva, and also blood flow creates arousal, and arousal then creates lubrication. So all of that is linked, and it's quite simple, and that is the basis which is already clinically proven. So we ride on that, we piggyback on that existing clinical literature, which says that 100 hertz is a really typical frequency. This frequency of vibration can help with sexual dysfunction because it can help with increased blood flow, addressing pain, creating arousal. And this has been proven in decades of studying. So that is the reason why we can create these devices without having to do the underlying medical research.
Yes. That's grand. And so I'm also really interested in the new devices. So we now have a device for men, primarily centered on men, to help with erection and erectile dysfunction. And some people would say, oh, there's plenty of things to already do that. But one of the things about medication around erectile dysfunction is if you have a heart condition, you may not be able to take any medication. And a lot of erectile dysfunction, there's quite a large percentage of erectile dysfunction that's due to heart conditions, post-heart attack, recovery from that, and also recovery from prostate cancer in men who have heart conditions and therefore can't just go and take a Cialis or a Viagra. And so this is new. How are you finding this device? Because the Tenedo is really interesting because it's not just for men, it's a combination device. So how are you finding this device, and what led you to decide to branch out in that way?
So our goal was to go, in terms of how big an impact a device can have on the percentage of the population. So the number one sexual health issue is female sexual pain. Yeah, and the pain can be in various areas. I think it's like 86% of moms, and then almost everyone after menopause. So it's the number one. So that's why we started with Crescendo. Then the number two sexual health issue, if you are gender agnostic, then the number two in terms of numbers is erectile dysfunction. It's 50% of men, and could be young men with psychogenic ED. It could be older men after prostate cancer. It could be things that happen in life, like you said, heart disease, diabetes. A lot of things can lead to it. So that's quite common. So that's why our second device was to tackle the second biggest sexual health issue. Now with Tenuto, what we wanted to do, one is understand what already exists, and setting aside pills, because obviously pills can't be taken by everyone and has side effects. So if we just look at devices, the current, or back then the main solution was vacuum pumps, which is a good solution. But the problem is it's a two-step process. So you have to use the pump to get the blood in the penis. Then you have to take it off and put a ring, a constriction ring, at the base of the penis. And it doesn't work for everybody. And the problem with a circular ring is it holds the blood, but it also stops ejaculation or makes it really difficult
Right.
to ejaculate. So, so they were, because when we ran a pretty big study group to understand what is it that can actually help address various things in ED, the combination was every penis is different, and the same penis is very different between flaccid and erect. It's really difficult to figure out what will work, just by buying online or in a shop. And then you end up buying a lot and then throwing all of them except for one. Two is comfort. Often it was uncomfortable to have a very tight ring. Beyond a certain point, initially it might be okay, but after a point it might get uncomfortable. Three was especially men who were trying to have kids with their partners. It's like, how do I have erectile dysfunction, but I also want to ejaculate. It doesn't go together. And the fourth point was interesting, which is no one really had looked into perineum stimulation. We obviously look at penis. The main focus of erectile dysfunction had been the penis head, stimulating the head, the glans, and then holding the blood in the penis shaft by constricting it. But the feedback we got from andrologists was that there was a significant amount of arousal and then which leads to erection can be created through stimulating the perineum, which has I think 4,000 or 5,000 nerve endings. But again, an area which hadn't been looked into. So, and then there was another element, which is helping the partner have arousal at the same time. So if you have a plastic ring, it doesn't, it obviously holds the blood, but it doesn't do anything for the partner. So there were all of these things that we wanted to merge together to create the device. And what we did with Tenuto was come up with this really malleable material, which is a composite of lots of different plastic, resin, polycarbonate, moisture at a certain temperature overmolded to hold that and maintain that flexibility without breaking. So we created that as the first step, is the material science, to make it very adaptable, malleable. It obviously still wouldn't fit 100%, but it would easily fit a 90% by stretching enough to adapt to big penis girths, but be equally good at constricting, so adapts to smaller penis girths. So that was the first step. The second step was having a gap in the bottom to allow semen to pass through. So that was a very challenging step because we had to make it robust enough that even with the gap, no matter how many times you pulled it, it would never break. Then the third element was the perineum stimulation and a really big power under there. And then the fourth element was the stimulation of the vulva, labia, and clitoris by having a very powerful 360 vibration at the front. So, and in the last bit is important because one of the biggest feedback we got during the initial product creation stage was introducing a device in the bedroom for a man. It's quite tricky. So that's why male sex toys is not that common. I would assume it's more a 1:10 ratio where the variety of female sex toys, or, if you think of like vagina, clitoral, labia sex toys compared to male sex toys is quite a big separation, because it's very easy for, if it's a heterosexual couple, for them to introduce a pleasure toy for the woman, either by the woman or the man, and in this case, a problem-solving product, which is difficult to really talk about for most men who don't really want to say that they are having erectile dysfunction. So one of the biggest things we got out of that initial phase of user survey is, if you make it about the woman and her pleasure, is the easiest way to introduce a sex toy. And it's better to call it a sex toy than a clinical medical product, because then this is not about solving some problem. This is about adding pleasure. And especially since we know that 90% of women need external arousal in order to orgasm, and a penetrative sex alone can't do that. So it's a very easy thing for, especially for the man to say, I discovered this product which will bring pleasure to you and make our sex better. So I bought it. And it just happens to sit on my penis. Yeah. So it's a hands-free device. So the conversation starting point was fascinating from a product design perspective, which we would normally not consider, because we would consider that to be marketing.
Right.
Rather than a product design element is, if we design it this way, then the customers can talk about it this way, and then they're more likely to have adoption. Whereas if we design it to be, let's say, a vacuum pump, it's really difficult to introduce it as a toy. And, without saying, I need help. And not many men want to say, I need help till much later.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So yeah, and I mean, it is a rather unique toy, a rather unique device. And so what kind of feedback are you getting as to how well this is working at this point?
So Tenuto, the first one, came out a while back, maybe 7 years ago. So since then, it's led to the creation of 2 more devices. So one of the feedback was a lot of women, especially the menopause doctors we work with, were using the front part of Tenuto on their own, holding the back bit in their hands and using the front part on their labia, just to, or labia or vulva, and just to get arousal without having to insert anything, because they didn't want to insert anything. And there aren't many toys which are, or probably none, for dedicated for vulva and labia stimulation. So they said, can you make something which is dedicated, rather than, this is obviously not designed for labia stimulation, it's designed for AD. Can you make something which adapts, to the labia shape, because everybody's different. So that led to the creation of Legato, which is shaped like the labia, but completely flexible and adaptable.
And that's coming out very shortly, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. So that's already out in the trials, and it will be out in hands of customers in a couple of months. So that's already, we've already built it and shipped it out for trials. Yeah. So that is one that came out of Tenuto. And the second thing that came out of Tenuto was Tenuto Mini. And the reason was prostate cancer. So prostate cancer, sadly, the only solution is to remove the prostate, which is a pretty significant surgery. And what happens as a result is the nerves, which are just on top of the prostate, which go from the brain to the penis, often get severed. And that means you can't just get erect easily, right? So the solution is then something like a physical device, like a pump. In this case, Tenuto would have been very useful, except the perineum is very sensitive after prostate cancer surgery, because there's a big cut, right? So they can't really stimulate the perineum. So they can't use the Tenuto. So they said, can you make a Tenuto without the back bit? Easier said than done, because all the power, the motor, the electronics, the switch, everything is in the back bit. So it took us 2 years of just engineering research to compress everything into a tiny front bit, where without sacrificing the power, because we had the 3 motors, then we had to fit battery, then we had to fit electronics, then we had to fit switches and the charging and everything in this tiny little device. So that came out, and that has already finished the trial, and now it's in production. So that's a really good device, which is very compact, very powerful, but can be used by people who can't use the perineum stimulation.
Yeah, I mean, some people who have prostate cancer, they don't remove the prostate for a variety of reasons. They can't, and so the Tenuto one works really well. The original,
so if you don't have perineum sensitivity or scrotum sensitivity, that's the other group of people, which is actually probably higher. So the scrotum sensitivity people also said, I can't use Tenuto 1 because it is too powerful on the scrotum. So they were the second group who said, can you make the front bit without the back bit? So we had enough people asking for the front bit without the back bit. So it was worth the 2 years of research, because we knew it would be really challenging going in.
And so that actually gives men who are having erectile dysfunction quite a few choices in order to see what can be done to sort that,
and there's another one, which is again tangential, because the purpose of creating this is another new device called Molto, and what it does is it literally is an index finger, and that's all it is. It's a completely malleable, bendy index finger, because the current standard of care is if a man has a prostate inflammation, prostate pain, or anything to do with the prostate, they have to go to a urologist, and the urologist, all they would do is insert an index finger. That's it. There's nothing more fancy than that. So the urologists we work with, they said, oh, the biggest challenge we have is if the patient, most patients don't come to us till it's too late, sadly, or they would come to us once a year for a checkup, and that's it. But really, to help with something like prostatitis, which is inflammation and secretions building up, all you need to do is have regular prostate stimulation to release the secretions. So it's not complicated from a medical perspective.
Right.
But
It's psychologically complicated.
Exactly, because it's not like cancer, which is very complicated. It's not something you can address at home. Whereas prostatitis, with the right device and the right instructions, you can just do it, even if it's once a week. And the goal is, if it's pleasurable, you will do it more.
Yes.
But if it's really awkward, going to a doctor, having someone, insert their finger, it's very invasive and very uncomfortable, you will avoid it till the last minute. So the goal with Molto was to give it into the hands of patients a very easy way they can reach and stimulate the prostate, and with the hope that they will find it pleasurable and do it regularly. But equally, going back to the point of ED, prostate stimulation has been shown to improve erections and lead to different types of orgasms. So even though that is trickier to prove, whereas prostatitis, it's very easy. It's like you have prostatitis, you use it, you get better, and you can measure that. Whereas the question is whether stimulating the prostate gets you a better erection than stimulating the penis. It might be subjective.
Right.
Right. It can be measured in a subjective way, but not as simple as pain. You know how much pain you're feeling. So I would say that is, again, a very interesting area where it's because it's a new device, we haven't had enough feedback yet. But once we have enough feedback, we will know how that is being used. And another area we found the use of Molto already is vaginismus, where the OBGYNs or gynecologists, they want to apply vibration, but the maximum would be one finger, whereas it's very rare to find really slim, and they also need it to be bendable to reach where they need to reach. So that's, again, something we don't know yet, but that's an interest that doctors have, and they have asked us to send them Moltos when it's ready for them to start trying.
There is one flexible vibrator specifically for that. I cannot remember the name of the company, and it's basically just a flexible rod. It's not very strong.
The flexible rod could be intimate rose.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yes.
No, so true. So, but then their width is the same as the crescendo width.
Yes.
So the problem is they can't. So people who don't use crescendo, they can't use that either.
No, it's too. Yeah, it's too. It's too wide. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same because the underlying principle is the same. It's two fingers. So that's typically how pelvic floor therapists do their therapy, is using two fingers, which is why both crescendo and intimate rose are based on that dimension. However, that doesn't work for people who
have vaginismus necessarily. Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It isn't slender enough.
Correct. Exactly. So it's so interesting that when we start creating a device, we typically have one specific problem that we want to solve. Let's say prostatitis, pelvic pain, etc. But then what happens is a lot of other people, doctors, clinicians, even users generally, start using it for different medical issues which we hadn't even thought of.
Yep.
Like, for example, a doctor in LA wants to try Molto for their trans patients who are transitioning from male to female, and to address the vaginal opening. Yeah. So again, a new area where hardly there has been any research. And once again Molto is ready and they start doing trials, it'll be fascinating, one, to understand if it's effective, and two, if it isn't, because it wasn't created for that, what is it can we build to help with that?
Well, and because dilation is a significant issue there, that there is continuous and ongoing dilation, and dilation, as has been reported to me by numerous trans people, is very painful often. And so if there were something that could help with that could either lower the pain or increase pleasure, or both, that would lead to less complications, because people would find it easier to stick with a regime.
Correct.
And
exactly.
And also make it a less onerous experience. So yeah, that would be a pretty big deal.
And often what we find is there'll be a study, they will find certain things, but the device isn't suitable for that. So I'll give you a really good example, is period pain. So one of the doctors we work with, he said, I would like to try Crescendo in my sexual health clinic, or because we have so many patients who come with period pain. And we said, sure, we can send you a bunch of units and you can try it, but it's not really designed for that. So they tried it and they said that the vibration works and they help with pain, but the user experience doesn't. And the reason is often pain lasts for 3 hours, maybe longer. One, the device isn't designed to run for 3 hours. Two, even if it did, you have to actually hold it in place, because it's on just below the belly button, is on the lower abdomen. And who can hold something in place for 3 hours? And your hand will get numb. So it doesn't really work. And then if you just leave it there, it will fall off. So what that led to, which is the next device coming out next year, is the feedback which says, can you make a sticky, like a belt, which just sticks to the lower abdomen, is really slim, so you can have it under your clothes and get on with your day, and is extremely quiet, so people can't hear it if you're sitting in an office and working with that on, and lasts for 4 or 5 hours in battery life. So we got all the requirements we needed from that study, even though it didn't lead to any publication, but it was so valuable to know that. So now we know exactly what we need to build, and that's what we're building for next year.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. God, if I, as a young woman who had significant period pain, like, the solution for me was to try and find a way of avoiding periods, right? But that would have been an amazing thing to have, because medication never worked very well. To have had something that actually would have made the cramping relax.
And without side effects.
Without side effects. And actually, there are other uses for that. People who have really bad, people with inflammatory bowel diseases, and digestive diseases who have really bad cramping. I mean, that kind of a device would be amazing to reduce cramping. Would be incredible.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's again, same principle, vibration, improved oxygenated blood coming to that area, improves with pain relief. Very much the same principle, but it's the form factor, it's the usability, is the subtleness of having that without needing to just be in bed. It's all of these things put together can make the device truly useful.
Which is, I mean, to me, it's incredible, because it is such a basic concept, and yet probably the reason it wasn't exploited before you guys started really working with it is because it required, the engineering skills it required to build something that was actually usable. It's one thing to know about it, but it's the same thing. If you have the device that'll stick on, well, then you could have that for back pain too. I mean,
correct, exactly.
Right. Instead of having to have somebody come behind me with the Theragun.
Yeah, exactly. So the reason we want to develop or have been developing the sticky as a technology that we'll use in multiple areas, one of them is legato. So legato is, again, designed to be held outside, but the current problem is you have to hold it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the So the main thing that will change once we have made the sticky technology, really good, is we will then upgrade Legato. When Legato 2 comes out, it will be sticky. And obviously, our goal is to make this completely reusable as many times as possible. And even after that, you don't have to change the device, you just have to change the strip. So let's say it can be used 100 times, which, should be, like a year's worth. Like it should mean like twice a week kind of thing, a year's worth. So then you're not really relying on disposable stuff, which is what we want to minimize. So the like sticky bras, for example, same technology. So the idea with that is Legato 2 will just stick. You can again adapt it, but then it will just stick and it won't fall off even at full power, which means it's a hands-free, very user-friendly experience.
Yeah, I could see where that would be attractive, although sticky and hair doesn't necessarily go together. So that's
the thing, that's why we want to spend enough time, because with sticky bras, it is pretty good. Even if you have some hair there, it is pretty good. Sticky bras don't hurt generally. So we try our best to find what works already in something out there. So we are not starting completely from scratch, and then optimize that for various body parts that we need to deliver vibrations to.
And this is so exciting because it really does impact a whole variety of issues, but also anything that provides hands-free pleasure is always a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of hands-free vibration are things like panty vibrators and things with magnets and stuff. And again, unless you're of a very specific dimensions, those things are notoriously hard to get to do anything other than kind of just vibrate some area near, get them in the right place and keep them in the right place is really difficult unless you're shaped in a particular way. And so they're kind of useless, so something that actually would stick so that you could use as hands-free vibration, it would be incredible. I know Dame came up with Eva and Eva 2, where you've got the arms. Yeah, but you know what? I mean, they bill that as fitting every body, but they don't. They just don't. And it's they're fiddly. For some people, they're fantastic. They'll just sit there and do what they're supposed to do. For other people, they just and if they don't work, they just don't work. There's no way around that. Then it's again another handheld device. And so stickiness makes more sense because that's something that you really could adapt. If you're able to mold it to your shape and have stickiness, then that will work for literally for everybody.
Yes, exactly. So that's why we spend, with all our devices, we spend a good couple of years just on the fundamentals, so that once we have done the fundamentals, the material science, electronics, the structure, etc., we ideally can make multiple devices from that. So for example, the hinge technology that Crescendo has is the same hinge technology in Poco, which is a mini Crescendo, and the same hinge technology in Legato. It's identical. And because that way we know that, yes, we've spent 5 years optimizing it and it really works. And then we have 3 devices out of it, which means that it will get more feedback and all 3 will get better at the same time. Whereas if we did, a different thing for every product, then we wouldn't have enough data to make for a long time to make all of them at that same level of really good, really strong, last a long time, really user-friendly. So all of those things. So that's why we try to optimize by consolidating things. So the tech, also motors, for example, I think between our 6 products, we only have 3 types of motors, even though there are multi-motors, so that we can be very precise in the motor research. How many windings, what's the weight of the head, what's the dimension of the head, how much current should go in there to deliver the best, because we are constrained by the frequencies which are clinically proven.
Mhm.
So what we need to do is deliver the maximum power in a very rumbly way, the maximum power for that frequency within those constraints of space. And it's not something you can just buy off the shelf. So then you have to custom make a variety of motors, let's say 50 different combinations, and then test all of them and factor in other things like battery consumption and noise. And after that, we can, be very, very accurate at creating those motors, which then we can use multiple times.
Yeah, and I mean, these, for people who haven't tried any of these from a pleasure perspective, they're good, strong devices. I mean, they're good, strong devices. The bendy bit is great, but also the strength, the power that you can get. A lot of times, when we talk about pleasure devices, and people who like a big whack of power will always talk about going for magic wand type devices, which are like really big, but you actually get pretty equivalent power in a very small space. So don't be put off by the fact that it doesn't look like that, right? That it's not a big whacking device. There actually is an amazing amount of power in these devices and these toys. And so well worth investing. And they are, on the market, they're at the higher price range on the market, but they're incredibly well made and they last forever. So
and the reason for that is design. It's made in a medical factory, so the cost of production is a lot more because it's in a clean room. It's made to FDA standards. So the reason that the factory, which basically the cost, the RRP is always a multiplier of the cost of the manufacturing. So the cost of manufacturing medical typically is, say, twice or three times of a non-medical product.
But I would encourage people that, even though that's the case, that it's worth the investment in it. And many of you have used luxury end toys in the same price range. So it's definitely worth the investment because it's got, the power is fantastic. And texture and feel is lovely, and the longevity, and they do different things. So it's I always think, and sometimes people forget this, it's always a good idea to have a few different types of toy, because you don't know what's actually going to provide the best stimulation, even when you don't have problems. If you're just doing this for pleasure enhancement, you don't know what's going to provide the most fun type of stimulation. So it's always worth having a variety.
Yeah, totally. I agree. And when people contact us, they ask different questions. And if we don't think one of our 6 products will be relevant, we would then encourage them to buy other products. Like, for example, if someone says, I am very curious about suction, then I'd point them to buy a womanizer, for example. We wouldn't say, we don't do it. But that's not the answer. The answer is, here is a product we think is great.
Yeah, I know, because if you want suction toys, womanizers definitely first name in suction toy. Still think that was a very unfortunate name choice. Don't know who decided that they wanted to do that.
It was, as far as I remember, it was an elderly German gentleman who invented it.
Yeah, just really not, it's amazing. It's only because the product's so good that they're still in business, because the name is so off-putting to so many women. But yeah, no, if you're interested in suction toys, they are definitely the first name in suction toys. So, but I would definitely encourage, and I will invite everybody to stay tuned for the unboxing and our product review, because we have a Crescendo 2 and a Tenuto to unbox, and then we're going to we're going to do an unboxing, and then we're going to do a product review. And for us, we're an older couple. He is recovering from prostate cancer, but he didn't have surgery, and he has congestive heart failure. So getting stronger every day. But between the two of us, I'm postmenopausal, so we figure it'll be a review that is going to target the population that really were targeted with these devices. to talk about what we think from that perspective. We'll do a pleasure review as well, because we do that separately. We'll talk about pleasure and we'll talk about it in a wider group. But I'm really looking forward to looking at it from the point of view of a medical device we never had need before. Now we do. So we'll check it out.
That's great. Yes. And, do message me any questions you have, any information you need.
I will do. I'm really looking forward to when the Legato comes out.
Yes. Yeah.
I think
Not
that's
far. Maybe a couple of months
I'm
away.
gonna tell you what, that's gonna be a birthday present for quite a few people I know.
Yeah.
It's such a big issue, and it's so difficult to get good information on what to do about that kind of postmenopausal pain, particularly if you still want to continue to have penetrative sex.
Yep.
The solution that many doctors give is to remind you that you can have all sorts of other types of sex.
That's not the solution.
Yeah, I know, but that's what you get told. It's like, well, sex doesn't have to be penetrative. Move on to something else. That really is what people get told. I find it,
which is very sad.
It is. It's amazingly sad. Yeah. And so this is something that can add to what's already out there in terms of, adding estrogen is definitely helpful, but it won't necessarily deal with the problem. And vibration definitely has a really good track record. So that should really be a part of every doctor's arsenal who's dealing with women in the perimenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal era. And nobody mentions it as a kind of a regular. I'm interested to hear you're doing a study with the NHS, because I want to see where they start putting stuff about vibration in their information, because they certainly don't right now.
So the biggest challenge is they're all so separate. So, one NHS trust, let's say UCL, for example, once the study finishes, they will start recommending Crescendo and POCO for their pelvic floor surgery patients. So like if a mesh caused damage and they had to do surgery, so it's quite extreme. But it's a good step in the right direction. But the problem is, even if they do, it doesn't mean that the next door NHS trust will do it,
or that they won't even, even for women, one of the things when you've had a child is that all women are starting to be told you should do pelvic floor exercises, period. But after you've had a child, there's a whole big thing around pelvic floor exercises. What they don't tell you is that you can actually over tighten.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They don't tell you that at all. And I remember going to a gynecologist who said to me, I said, do I need to do more exercises? Is that what's going on? And he said, oh no, my God, you need to loosen up. I was like, what? Yeah, you're far too tight. That's part of why you're having pain, is that you're far too tight. I'm like, oh, okay. But nobody told me it was possible to be far too tight. So I was doing like the 100, I was the champion trainer, right? I was doing everything I could. And it turned out that was exactly the wrong advice.
Yep.
And the only way you'll know that on the NHS is if you get the right gynecologist by some weird chance. And in fact, you're more likely to hear that if you get a urogynecologist, not a gynecologist. Like if you're going because, as women do, they leak urine as they get older. If you're going for that, that's when somebody will say to you, wait a minute, you've overdone it. Or if you're going and you actually get sent to a pelvic floor physiotherapist often after a hysterectomy.
Yes, pelvic floor therapists are the best people for this.
Yeah,
definitely.
But you don't get access to that necessarily.
It's really difficult to get access to them on NHS. On private, it's easier.
Privately, but you don't know about them privately. Like I didn't find out about them privately till I had a hysterectomy privately. And when I had the hysterectomy, they said, here it is. This is what you do, and these are the things you have. And I was like, oh, I never, and you can come back and see us. And I was like, I didn't even know you existed as a discipline.
Yeah.
And you won't.
This is true everywhere. In the biggest challenge in US is not knowing what pelvic floor therapy is. Second, let's say you do know, is finding one in a radius that's accessible to you, and then knowing who is good, and then money, right? It's not one
Yeah.
therapy. It might be 20 therapies. It might be
Yeah.
more. And let's say it's $300. 20 therapies, $6,000. That's a lot of money.
That's
for
a
most
lot of
people.
money. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I know. And if there are ways of doing this where you can employ at home stuff as well,
Yeah.
it's just so much better. But I think this is step one. We're talking about it. And that's, I think, for me, I've been doing this podcast since 2016. And when it comes to anything to do with sex, the more we can actually talk about it, and
Sure.
and not just be focusing on porn and things like that, but actually talk about sexual health and sexual wellness and increasing pleasure, the more likely we are for people to be able to resolve these issues that affect so many people during the lifespan and actually cause an incredible amount of not only physical pain, but psychological pain, problems in marriages, problems in relationships, and a decrease in intimacy, which we all need to live. We need intimacy.
Yep. Very
And,
much.
so that's why I think this is so important. And I love that your company is one that is so focused on actually finding solutions to these issues.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me. If they want to find you and find your products, well, there's going to be a link in the podcast notes, guys, because you can actually purchase right off my page. But if they want to find more information, where do they find you? Where's the best place?
Just mystery5.com. Everything, all our blog, all our content. We write about anything from prostate cancer to threesomes, because for us, we don't separate the two. Anything that will improve intimacy, anything that will improve pleasure, anything that will improve the mystery in the bedroom, especially after 20, 30 years of being together, is relevant.
Yep.
Right. So we don't, we try to answer questions. That's our goal of writing, is like, if someone asks, what do I do? I've just had prostate cancer. I've recovered, how do I get back into sex? That's a very good question. And equally, if someone says, I'm really curious, how do I have a threesome with my partner? Can you tell me how that, what's the step to talk about it? That's an equally valid question. So we try to answer, everything through content.
Yeah. And guys, the blog is really good. And I don't recommend very many blogs because I'm picky about stuff like that, but the blog is really good. Well written, fun, lots of good topics, and lots of questions that you won't see necessarily other places. And so next week is the letter N. I'm not going to tell you what we're doing yet, which usually means I'm not 100% sure. And if you have questions or comments, you can reach me at LoriBeth at drloribethbisbey.com. If there's a topic you want to hear about, please send it in. Also, if there's a particular person you want to hear from, I will do my best to get them on the show. And I am still running the competition for reviews, because people are notoriously bad at writing reviews for these shows. If you do write a review and you email me and tell me you've written the review and I can go find it, your name is put in the fishbowl where I draw once a month for a free 30 minutes with me, which are hard to come by these days. So do please, I'll do that for a review of the show or review of any of the books. Have a great week. Look forward to seeing you soon. And that's all from us.